Welcome to Girls Like Us podcast. Welcome to Girls Like Us podcast.
Forced consent. Over 1/4 of submissions report forced consent. 47% of forced consent submissions report a technique where there will be a negative consequence for saying no. 16% of forced consent submissions involve an abuse of a power dynamic. Guilt is key to forcing consent. Often multiple at once. Forced consent is not a gray area. Perpetrators do know the answer is no, and know what they are doing when forcing consent. Perpetrators like to provide evidence against harmful narratives that consent has been given in cases of forced consent. These are statistics that were submitted and that were brought out from encounters with men via Instagram.
Hi.
Hi guys. Welcome to Girls Like Us. This is Venus.
This is Charlotte. Hey guys, if you could just take a moment to rate us wherever you listen to us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, any platform that you possibly listen to us on, Facebook, Instagram. Just take the time out, just a few moments, and rate us and let us know how you feel about us. Every little comment and rating helps, even the littlest. Like, just please do it. Thank you.
Yes. And do you have any plans for this weekend?
Yeah, I'm just gonna chill. I think I'm supposed to go to a wedding reception. That's about it.
You love dressing up anyway.
I do. Dressing up is fun. That's it. I'm not sure about it, but I think that's what I might end up doing this weekend.
That's always fun.
Yes.
I, on the other hand, I'm still cleaning. I'm literally cleaning my life away. Like, I kind of had to stop because I fill up my garbage cans and I kind of have to remember that there's other people in my house that have garbage. But I'm just gonna clean my life away.
That's what I probably finish doing on Sunday. I have to wash clothes too. So I'm working all day on Saturday. So after that, it's reception. So probably Sunday is when I'll do my cleaning and stuff because I definitely need to wash and things.
I wash every weekend because I hate having a pile of clothes. So
yes.
I usually try to do that Friday after work. But you know how I told you that I didn't this Friday? I pampered myself.
Yes.
I ate wings. I don't know if you've seen that meme that says me as a wife and she brings like the little like tray to the bed, like breakfast in bed, and the husband thinks that it's for him, but it's no, like she literally set up like breakfast for herself. Yeah, she lays in the bed like for herself. That was me this weekend. That was me Friday.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Like I was like, oh, you want some? I don't know. So, this is me. You figure out what you want.
Right. Oh my God.
So that's pretty much probably what I'm gonna do this weekend. Just clean. I have a lot of work to do anyway, like personal work.
Right.
So I'm not complaining. I don't want to go out. I don't know who I am anymore. I used to be out every weekend.
You definitely did.
I'm a changed woman.
Fast life.
I'm a changed woman. Yes. Today's episode, I'm very, very excited for today's episode. I've been super excited. I think because we actually scheduled this episode before the break. I was so excited to tell Charlotte. I was so super excited. Today's episode, I'm very excited about. Rape is already underreported, and within men, it's even more. And not a lot of men speak up. Not a lot of men come forward. We have an interview with James Landrith, and he's been an advocate for like about 10 years. And he tells his story. He's told his story through a lot of different platforms. And I'm not going to say that it was easy for him. I'm not going to say that it's been a walk in the park, especially as a man. I can't imagine the backlash from it, the negative comments. We've experienced victim blaming from victims.
Right.
So I can't even imagine. So today's episode, we're doing an interview with him, and I'm very, very excited about it. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us. You want to give us a little bit of background on about yourself and what you do, about how you came to being an activist and everything?
Sure. Well, I first started getting involved in activism in early 90s when I founded my own magazine for interracial families called The Multiracial Activist, and I started putting out regular online issues, gave the magazine away for free for many years, and eventually that got me involved in a lot of civil liberties work, including some high-level coalitions, lawsuits, things like that, where I continue to challenge different administrations and lawsuits on things like illegal detention following September 11th, attempts to nullify things like attorney-client privilege by making it legal in institutions to be able to spy on people as they're having private discussions with their attorneys, things like that, where my magazine got involved, in some cases as a plaintiff. And that led me to then eventually decide to do some advocacy work around sexual violence, which I had never done before. All of my advocacy work had been strictly around discrimination and overreach, and in some cases also anti-war activities as a veteran. So in 2008, I decided to really get heavily involved in working on sexual violence issues. Started off with the Virginia Sexual and Domestic Violence Action Alliance as part of their Survivors Caucus, and also on one of their statewide working groups of survivors and advocates discussing legal changes and how they would affect survivors and access to services. And over time, I joined the Speakers Bureau for RAIN, and I also ended up doing some work with a national sexual violence organization, working on one of the hotlines, and I've continued to do that work to this day. Also serve on the board of directors for men recovering from military sexual trauma.
That is very extensive. There is so much work that you do and so much that you are involved and so much help that you provide. And I'm pretty sure so many stories that you've heard and so much insights that you've been able to cover and so much knowledge that you're able to get and know how to help people.
Oh yeah, so it's a lot. There's so much more in between that I can't even begin. I could talk for 3 hours.
So what branch did you serve? Because I know you're a veteran.
I was in the Marine Corps.
How long ago was that?
I started off in January of '89 and transitioned off of active duty in January of 1995. Then I did another 6 years after that in reserve status, both inactive reserve and then actively drilling for a bit as well. So I was completely done with my military service around February of 2001.
Wow. Yes.
Well, thank you.
Charlotte she's a Marine mom. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I did 12 years total.
That's very extensive. So thank you for your service.
Yes.
Thank you.
You are a survivor, and I'm very thankful that you decided that you were okay to come forward and, advocate and also share your story with us. I believe that not a lot of men are open to this. Not a lot of men admit it, and if rape is already underreported, for men is way underreported. Would you share your story with us?
Sure. I was on active duty. This was the fall of 1990. So just think what life was like before the internet. People could Google something and find help. And then think what the military was like then, with almost no help whatsoever for female survivors, let alone a man. Even in 2020, people still deny that men can be raped.
Yeah.
Just think about 1990, what that was like then. It was even worse. So I was going to a club off base, meeting up with a friend of a friend, one of those friends that you inherit when your mutual friend leaves. So I had a roommate, he had a friend, and 3 of us would sometimes hang out together. My roommate on campus, but on base. I'm saying on campus so people understand. It's kind of like a military base is almost like a college campus, except there's a lot more guns. But people are living in barracks. That may be similar to dorms. So just think we all had roommates if you were in two to 3 person rooms. So the guy I was rooming with, he got out of the service, and I inherited this friend, a mutual friend. He and I decided we would meet up at a club off base, and he showed up there with a civilian female friend of his. At some point during the night, we were having fun. It was New Wave night, which is what I went out for. This was 1990. I was really big into bands like the Smiths and Depeche Mode and groups like that. And so I was there for that night at the club. He disappears and leaves me with this friend of his, who I had just met that night. This is Jacksonville, North Carolina. There's not a lot of mass transit. There's no train system. Buses only run in certain areas at certain hours. So she had no way of getting home with the exception of an expensive cab ride. She asked me, hey, I haven't been out in a little while. Is it all right? Would you drive me home after it's over? I'm like, cool, yeah, no problem. So as a thank you, she bought me a few drinks. I was 19 at the time. So even in a military town, they carded and they were not going to serve me drinks under 21 because that's a good way to get put on the restricted list where on base they distributed lists of businesses that you could not go to that were off limits because they would be maybe serving people underage or illegal activities going on. So she had to buy me drinks and she drugged the last one, I believe. I only had a few drinks that night. It didn't take long until I started feeling groggy and not up to driving her home. Right next to the club there was a motel, and so she or I don't remember, or both of us paid for the room. The intent was we would go to sleep and then in the morning I would drive her home, which I was still fine with doing because it was a Friday night and Saturday morning I'm not on duty or anything, so cool. I can stay in the motel overnight. I wake up at some point and she has stripped me from the waist down and she's on top of me. I'm still groggy, don't know what's going on, and I pass back out. And then in the morning after that, I then wake up disoriented. I remember something was going on, and then she's on me again. At this point, her personality is different than it was the night before. She's very aggressive. She's telling me, don't be forceful, making it very clear she's doing what she wants, and I'm just there to sit down, to lay down, shut up, and deal with it, which I did. Without getting into details, explicit details, she finished up, brought herself to completion, got off, and still expected the ride home, and then expected me to hang out with her for a good portion of the day. And I was, at this point, not even sure what happened, had no words to describe it, and I just went along with her demands for the rest of the day until she was to the point where she said, just go ahead, you can, I'm going to go to bed now, see you later. And that's the short version of the story.
How much older was she than you?
Probably about 6 years old. I think she was about 25.
When you came back, because your friend left you with her, right? So it was your friend's friend.
Yep.
Did your friend ever see her with you?
After he disappeared, I don't think so. Because I don't think he was even in the club anymore at that point. And I only saw him once more after that. And he was really weird around me then. So I'm wondering, I've always wondered, did she do that to him too?
Right. That's what I was going to say. Did you talk to him about it at all or no?
No, I didn't tell anybody for a long time.
Could have been either maybe she did it to him or he was in on it. Mm-hmm. Like he knew what she had done to you.
Yeah, my impression was definitely that he knew it had happened, that either he helped her by setting me up or he left because he knew she might try to do it to him again, so I wasn't sure. I never saw him again after that.
I'm pretty sure that he knew something.
Right. Did she reach out to you after this happened, days after?
No, of course she couldn't get on base, so that was the end of that.
What effect did you feel of whatever she had given you? Because these are 1990s and I'm pretty sure that the side effects
are different
but are also similar. So what did you feel, if you can recall?
A little disoriented in the morning. I was, first off, didn't realize where I was right away, and then I remembered, I'm off base. This is the barracks room. I remembered her from the night before, but not much about her, and she was pregnant, which was part of the reason why I agreed to drive her home. So she made it clear that, if I moved, I could harm the baby, things like that. So that's part of the reason why I did do anything. That also, tonic immobility was, which people still don't believe exists for male survivors, but it exists for all survivors.
It does. It does. You freeze. You don't
know how to react.
Yes.
Like that.
You're kind of like, is this really happening type of thing.
Exactly. And if I put my hands on her to stop it, it could have very easily been turned against me, and I could have been charged with assault. Right. In 1990 in North Carolina, men couldn't even be considered survivors and victims in the way the statute was written, let alone would they have ever even dared prosecute a woman.
Right. Of course. And you're a man, you're young, so why didn't you fight her off? You're strong. It goes into the whole victim blaming. You're a man, you're strong enough, why didn't you fight her off? Women can't rape.
Yep, all of that. And in 2020, people still want to argue with you about it. I'm like, you weren't even born in 1990. What do you know about it, kids? It's very annoying on social media with that. There's a lot of really strong opinions from a lot of very younger, educated people. Yeah, and they have loud voices.
And some of them I don't even realize that they've been raped, that they've been sexually assaulted, because they're brought up to men can't be raped and women don't rape, and that's not the case.
Exactly. I remember one guy writing a comment about my story when it was published. I don't remember which publication it was. He posted his comment in the middle of the night, like 2:30 in the morning or something like that. And he wrote, well, this exact same thing happened to me and it didn't bother me. And I'm thinking, it's the middle of the night and you clearly Googled to find a story like this and you're commenting. I think it bothered you, sir.
Mm-hmm. How did you, I guess, come to terms to realize that you had been raped, that this is what she had done to you and that wasn't okay and it wasn't normal?
It took me a while it was a coworker who eventually looked at me and said, so you were raped? Because we were talking about experiences and things that were creepy or just didn't feel right. And I talked to her about what happened, and she said, so yeah, she raped you. And I was like, yeah, that's what it was, but I'd never ever used that word because there's so much stigma around it, and there's also, though, a lot of really bad advocacy out there that does not want to acknowledge female predators. And these are trained victim advocates who know better and still won't use that word and call it what it is. Mm-hmm. And when you tell people that men can't be raped, and you say rape is a crime that happens to women by men, male survivors hear that message and get the point, and the point is shut up, don't talk about it, and stay out of the way.
That is so true. So once you talk to your coworker and she's like, you were raped, how is it that you started, I guess, trying to heal, because now at that point you had admitted it?
I went to the National Sexual Assault Hotline, got referred to a local center where I live, and was able to get some help there. That's part of the local county funding. So I was able to see a therapist for a bit. And then since I already had a lot of experience as an advocate, I put my story out there immediately so I couldn't take it back. Mm-hmm. I put it out in a way that I could never lie to myself again because it was printed.
Yeah, try to convince ourselves that it didn't happen. How has it affected your relationships moving forward?
With my wife, I think she wasn't expecting it because I'd never talked about it with her. So that was a bit of an adjustment. I know there are a bunch of friends came forward and told me they're survivors as well. And I've made a lot of new friends in the movement. And I lost some friends along the way. And there were some people who've told me, hey, what you're doing is wrong. Women are the victims and you're distracting attention away from them. Mm-hmm. And as a man, you should be focusing on that. I don't talk to those people anymore because if you're not part of helping and your entire point is to silence another survivor, I don't need you in my life.
Yeah, as sad as it sounds, I've also found that a lot of the victim blaming and a lot of the it's not true comes from victims themselves, from survivors themselves, because your story doesn't match theirs or yours didn't happen the way that theirs happened. It makes yours less validating, and it's like, no, a victim is a victim no matter the color, the age, the height, the gender. Yes.
Exactly. I mean, I could have very easily physically handled her, but I had no idea what would happen after that.
She could have played I'm pregnant, he dragged me here. Like, why would I be here? I'm pregnant.
Exactly. So she had me in a position, manipulated, and knew that I wasn't going to do anything. And even the choice of language, don't be forceful. It didn't sound like something she just off the cuff said. And she said it repeatedly, the exact same words, don't be forceful, meaning lay there, put up with what's happening. That's what's expected. Mm-hmm. If you do anything different, there's a consequence.
After you went back to the base, after everything happened, were you did you retract? Like, were you like, did this really just happen? Or like, no, it's my imagination? Did you try denying it yourself?
Second guess yourself?
I did second guess myself. I was like, what was that? Who does that? I knew she didn't have permission, and I wasn't interested in having sex with her. I was really just going to give her a ride home because she was pregnant and she was stranded, and I had a car, and it wasn't really a big deal for me to do it. The rest of it, I just was like, maybe I misinterpreted something, but nothing. Focusing back on her words, don't be forceful, the look in her eyes, the fact that she started while I was still unconscious. I didn't know what it was. I knew it wasn't right, but I didn't know it was necessarily criminal. But all of that's messaging, socialization. So I just kind of put it away. I was like, I can't do anything with it. I don't know what it means. what's the point in even thinking about it? And I put it away. And then the Gulf War started a few months later. So I had something else to focus on.
Yeah, so it was just like you didn't even get time to think about it.
Yeah.
How long after this happened did you admit it to yourself? Like when you finally, after you spoke to your coworker and you're like, I was raped. How long
That was
it?
Almost 18 years. I had thought about it many times in between, but I'd never called it that. I knew it wasn't right, and I didn't know what to think of it, so I didn't want to think of it. Then I did a lot of quick reading, learning, getting competent on the issue, understanding that was normal for me to not know what to call it, especially given the way it's discussed in society and even by a lot of advocates as well. How would I have known better? I wouldn't.
Did you have any triggers then, and do you have any triggers now? Or maybe like then that you didn't realize those were triggers and now you're like, that was a trigger?
Yeah, definitely. There are some, women who resemble her can be triggering if the personality is similar. For a while, my rapist was about 25 and white. So for a while, pregnant white women did trigger me if they were on the younger side. That's not an issue like that anymore. Early on, when I first ripped the scab off and started working on healing, it was like everywhere I looked, there was a pregnant white woman. It was crazy. Now I don't even really notice. I won't say that I don't notice at all. I notice differently than I used to, if that makes sense.
No, it does.
Yeah.
It does make sense.
And personality types that are like her, where a person comes on really strong, insistent, demanding something here that they're not entitled to right off the bat and being unapologetic about it. I'm not talking about somebody advocating for themselves. I'm talking about somebody getting in your space and making demands of you without any relationship or any reason why they should expect that you would be helping or providing whatever it is they're demanding. That can be triggering, definitely, because that goes back to personality type and expectation. It can be hard sometimes also working in a victim services environment, knowing that almost any meeting I go into, it is all women around me at all times. So I had to do a lot of work on that to the point where I try to get to know people I'm working with quickly so that I know I can trust them.
It puts you now into a position. You know how they say that, as a woman, you start being scared of being around men. I can't even imagine you. It's just like, can I even be by myself with this woman in this room and not think that she's going to try to do anything, try to flip it?
Exactly. Because it wasn't just a sexual assault. It was the way she did it so easily without actually coming right out and saying it explicitly. It was very slick and manipulative.
Kind of like she's done this probably before.
I have no doubt she was a serial.
I feel like a lot of times that's the case. Like, it's not their first time. If they've done this before, so know how it's gonna play
And
out.
she probably, if she's still out there, she probably hasn't gotten caught, and she's never gonna get caught because we live in this society where men don't get raped.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And
people always, yeah, exactly. And they always love to throw stats at you. Well, it's only such and such a number. I said, that's the number you counted because we don't come forward.
Exactly.
And also, and you're also telling us when we do come forward that it's not really rape. And then you don't count it as rape, and then you use the fact that you intentionally didn't count it against us to say that it doesn't happen. It's very self-serving.
In your advocacy and because I know, like, for a woman, when you report it, let's say that if, I report it right now when I go to the doctor, you have a rape kit. There isn't a rape kit for a guy.
Yeah, they can do some things like trying to collect evidence and testing clothes and stuff, but it doesn't work the same way. And back then, there was absolutely nothing. I would have been laughed at, mocked, and probably chewed out if I had tried to report her and get evidence. And even now, there's still not that much. And I hear it all the time from men who've reported that they were laughed at by the detectives. They were laughed at or even yelled at by nurses for wanting for wanting evidence collected and a forensic exam. It's amazing the amount of smugness that's still out there on this issue. And it's like, if you don't want to help, okay, fine, don't help. Maybe just get out of the way and let somebody else help.
Yes, because like I said, like for women, it's bad. You get, why do you go there? Do you willingly go there? Why do you dress that way? And for a man to even imply that this happened to him, it goes into like, well, you're a man. This doesn't happen to men.
Yep. And there's so many, I've heard so many things. There's this like fitness blogger who when my story came out in CNN, she shared it and added a comment, simply not over drinking could have avoided this. I've been shamed for for my body since it's happened. I've had body shaming because someone took a screenshot of me from HuffPost Live. And mind you, this is 25 years after the fact, and I'm older, I'm overweight, and this was a group of rad femmes on Twitter who took this picture and posted it there. This is what a man looks like when he's lying about being raped by a woman.
Wow.
That's insane.
And yeah, it's crazy. It's stuff that I've heard over the years.
It's so sickening, and the fact that you're sitting here and like you're so strong and you're so like the fact that pretty much the same people that are sitting here victim blaming you and scrutinizing your story and what you went through is the same people that you sit in a room full of and help.
Yep. Yeah, it's amazing. I had a former colleague tell me, men don't get victim shamed when they come forward. Everyone automatically believes them. And I was like, oh, first off, I need to take a break because I want to cuss you out right now.
Right,
No,
exactly.
that's not what happens. I mean, when I told my story on CNN, it was an internet print story. It wasn't a live broadcast. Within about 24 hours of the story getting posted, there were about 8,000 hateful victim shaming comments in the comments section on that story. That's less than a day.
Wow.
How do you get through that? Because it happens so often with both, with men and females, and that part is so hurtful because so many people like look at you like you're lying. Like, how do you get past that? How do you work?
It's
through
hard. I mean, I had some suicidal ideation to work through for a little bit. That was not good. And I ended up just helping other survivors and advocating harder and being louder and sharing screenshots of this stuff and shaming people. And people don't like when I do that, but I'm like, well, you should be teaching. It's like, no. I'm not going to teach a 40-year-old to have empathy. I'm going to point out what they did so other people get the message. Survivors are fighting back on this now. And if you're in your 40s, I can't teach you empathy. You're broken already. I don't care. Leave me alone. Keep my name out your mouth, and I won't make you internet famous for shame. But it's amazing when a survivor fights back, then a whole bunch of people who didn't have your back come in and it's like, well, you should be educating. No, you should be educating.
Exactly.
We shouldn't have to do the work.
You should be educating your children from a young age. So when we get to this point, it doesn't happen, and we're not here, and we're not sitting here questioning again the victim because it doesn't look like your stereotypical victim because the rape wasn't a stereotypical rape.
Yep. It's like I keep telling people, I'm like, there are a lot of stranger rapes, but most rapes are not. It's somebody who knows you or has been able to get close to you for a little bit, an acquaintance or a friend or a family member, someone who you've let your guard down with because you feel you can trust them.
Yes, that is very, very true. And people think that rape is this violent act where if you weren't like beaten or dragged or show all these scars, it didn't happen.
Right.
And that's something I still have to deal with to this day. I mean, with that former coworker, she just was like really angry with me for insisting that I had been victim blamed when I came forward. And I even showed her evidence of it because I keep records of some of that stuff. I screenshot some of it. I'm putting some of it in a chapter that I'm writing on my own experience as a survivor in the public sphere. And it's amazing that the people who tell you that this victim shaming doesn't happen go silent and don't retract it, though. They don't retract their statement that it doesn't happen. They just stop talking with you when it becomes clear that you're calling them out on their lie. Because their lie, they don't really believe it. It's an ideological belief, which is different than a regular belief. So facts don't matter when it's ideology versus truth or fiction.
As your work, have you had the chance to, have you had other men come forward?
Oh yeah, definitely. I've had other men come forward to me, email, call, leave comments on interviews. I've had women come forward to me about being sexually assaulted by other women or seeking help for a male loved one who's been hurt. After I do public speaking events, I always get a few women at the end who were raped by other women who feel completely silenced.
Yeah, because in the gay community, it's a lot of you're the same sex, you have the same power, so that doesn't happen. Even with the domestic violence between same sex, it's that doesn't happen. You guys are equal. Another woman can rape you. How can that even be? Because she doesn't have a penis.
Exactly. That's the kind of comments they get, where they get, you're an outlier. We really need to focus on men's violence. And it's very condescending and surly, and they try to make it sound like they have empathy, but they really have none. They want you to shut up and get out of the way because they consider you a distraction.
And it's not, because I've always said, like, victims together stronger in numbers.
Right.
It doesn't matter. Like, a victim is a victim. And it's so disgusting that even us as women, we're sitting here fighting for a cause, and we're going to shame a victim, another victim, because he just happens to be a man.
Yeah, but it's amazing. And when I get it online from people who randomly will come at me, and I'm like, dude, I've been doing this work for 10 years. I'm a nationally credentialed victim advocate. You're Schmucky the Clown on the internet, and you're going to come at me based solely on gender. Sit down, do some reading, take some courses, educate yourself, do less talking and more listening.
What has helped you heal, especially dealing with all this? Because I want to say it's harder to heal because as you're healing, you're also getting thrown at all this victim blaming, all this. It's not true.
All the negative.
So it's like one step forward and 10 back because there's 100 other people saying all this.
It was hard. At first, I had to discipline myself to not read comments till I got to a point where I felt strong enough that I could select the worst of the worst and throw them out there on my own social media feeds and talk about them. And at that point, I stopped caring about that because I made it clear that if you come at me in that way, I am going to hurt your feelings and I won't care that you didn't know better. And that helped me a lot with my healing on that when I stopped giving them free space in my head. And then I was able to focus on what good am I able to do? How many survivors have I helped? How many hotline calls did I take? That kind of, that focus. And then I became less about the trolls who want to take over your time in your life, throw you off track. And then they're useful idiot compatriots who are all about be civil, be nice. You have to educate them. But they don't want to do the work themselves. They expect the survivors to do all of this emotional labor for everyone else, but they don't want to actually help either.
Like you have to help yourself heal and you have to teach society. And then if you are going forward, pressing charges, you have to investigate your own case.
Yep, it's a lot of work. And there's a lot of people who will come in and make demands of you that aren't theirs to make. A friend of mine is one of the women who was hurt by cows. I knew her for a long time before I knew that. She was in the New York Magazine article and everything, and she never came forward. She's all but disappeared off of social media because of the hate storm that came her way for being one of those women. It's really hard in the public eye to be a survivor and talk because there's so many people who pretend that they care about the issue but really are there to try to hurt you. They're sociopaths, but they sound so pleasant, and they're all about, you just have to educate the public more, and it's your job to do it because you've been hurt. And they want to sit back and criticize how you heal without doing any actual work themselves. And I've had to identify those people sometimes in friend circles. I'm like, this person is not your friend. They're here trying to manipulate you, and they're getting something out of it. They're not helping you. Cut them out. If you don't feel like doing labor for this person, send them packing because they're not your target audience.
That is so true. You're so strong. Yes. And you're so strong because, like you said, you've been doing this for 10 years, and then for even to I can't even imagine what you've endured in 10 years of coming forward and helping and trying to
and getting the negative backlash all the time. That's a lot. That's the hardest part, is getting the negative backlash and letting it just roll off of you and knowing it comes with the territory. But I guess that's the hardest part in healing and trying to pass that.
It is, and I always tell people coming forward and going public is not for everyone. Know what you're getting into and do it only if it's what you really want to do. And you're not being cowardly by not coming forward and going public. That's a personal choice every single time, and you do it for your own reason. But if you do come forward, just expect people are nasty and evil and foul, and they will be everywhere. And be prepared for that, and have a plan for taking care of yourself. And it's okay at any point that you want to stop talking about it. Stop talking about it.
Yes, it makes me so angry because there's women out here doubting. And I've said that I don't know, first of all, why women, they don't stick together, let alone now you're going to victimize a whole other victim. It makes me angry that the world has made it so unsafe for a victim to come forward, let alone a male victim.
Yeah, I did about 2 years ago maybe. I was on the campus of William Patterson University in New Jersey. I'd been invited up during April for a SAPM event to speak. And as part of it, I was talking about being a survivor in the Me Too era. Now, granted, I came forward way before, but I remember when Tarana Burke was on MySpace talking about Me Too in the mid-2000s. So I remembered it before it got co-opted by white Hollywood actresses. I remember because I was on those threads reading it. I had made friends with some of the women on MySpace after I came forward in 2008. And so I was talking about what it was like talking in public about being raped and dealing with triggers and dealing with both positive and negative reactions. And then at one point, I let people know this next section of my talk is going to be disturbing and possibly triggering, and I won't be offended if you need to step out for a minute. And I spent 5 minutes and read a whole bunch of really nasty, hateful comments comments that had been delivered to me, and I said the names of the people or the screen names of who they were. And people were, their mouths, jaw dropped. I was like, no, you need to hear this. This is what we hear when we talk. And when you say, especially when you tell male survivors that they don't get victim blamed, you're incompetent right off the bat. It looks different, but it happens. And I found the only way to get people to understand it is to actually say it. This was told to me. This is who said it. This is the context in which it was said. And I've been able to then start making some traction on that. I kind of feel like a broken record, but recently there's a new trope in survivor advocacy circles that if a man comes forward after 30 years, he's automatically believed. And that's completely lacking in historical accuracy, and it ignores how much work was done in the last several decades to get to the point where we can actually even be heard.
Yes, there's so much of it, and it's like, it shouldn't take someone 30 years for you to believe them. Like the moment that they decide to come forward, whether it happened yesterday or a couple hours ago, they should be believed.
Yeah, definitely. It's hard. And I was doing one of my very first big speaking events was at Randolph College in Southern Virginia, and it was for Take Back the Night March, and it ended up getting rained out, so we had to move it inside to an auditorium, and instead of a march, it was just kind of a rally, and I was the keynote for that, so I spoke. I was invited by the organizer. Turned out, she told me that she invited me because she had been sexually assaulted by a friend of hers growing up who was also another woman. She was having trouble finding a woman who had been sexually assaulted who could talk, so she asked for a male survivor who had a female rapist to come forward because she wanted that to be highlighted. So I talked, and it got to the point at the end, a lot of those types of events, they will then sometimes open up the floor to anybody else who wants to come up. Some people come up and tell their story, or they may plug another event that's happening, or come up and just say thank you, or ask questions. And knowing I'm there, I know what the event organizer went through, because she shared that with me confidentially. And then the campus president for the FMLA comes forward. It was the Feminist Majority Foundation Leadership something. I don't remember the full acronym. And she came forward and she said, do not be distracted or deceived by what's been said tonight. The real problem is men raping women.
Wow.
She said that while I was in the room. She didn't make eye contact with me because she was too cowardly to do that. But she came forward, hijacked an event, disrespected me in front of everybody, and the event organizer, who was mortified. This crap happens, and it's people who you would...
The issue is people raping. That's the
Right.
issue.
Exactly.
Not a man, because not only men rape,
Right.
women rape.
Did you ask, did you confront her about that after?
No. She left pretty soon after that. I think she knew that she wasn't welcome because the audience did not feel comfortable with that. Nobody clapped and said, yay, woo, you go girl, none of that.
Right.
It was pretty silent, especially after several people had talked. And I think it felt really awkward in the room. I kind of deflated. I had driven 3 hours on my own dime. That's a lot of gas money, 6 hours round trip in a car to do this event for free, and to have somebody who should be woke say that in front of hundreds of people was really, really pissed me off. I sat in my car first and cried for about 45 minutes, just from the general vulnerability hangover you get from doing a big presentation like that, but then also what she said. So I never confronted her on it. I did tell the event organizer that I was disgusted by it, and I'm sure she had conversations after the fact. But that kind of stuff happens, and it happens within this movement. And then people will gaslight you and tell you it doesn't happen.
What has been some of the positive feedback that you have gotten, or maybe help, or people, advocating that you saw change when they came and they're like, it doesn't happen, and then they're like, oh, it does happen. You're right.
There was a woman who was now a friend of mine who was abused and didn't think because her abuser was a woman that she had the right to call it that. And I talked through it with her, and I didn't label it for her. I just helped her get to the point where she understood that she had a right to not be okay with what happened, and whatever she called it was up to her. And she said that That was the first time she really understood her own experience in that regard. It was really helpful being able to talk about it with somebody who took it seriously. I had some conversations similar to that with other survivors. And of course, having been a victim advocate, I've helped people in a professional capacity. And every once in a while, I'll just get an email from someone who says, thank you. I could never tell my story publicly, but I connected on with so many of the things you were saying, because there's not a lot of people who are out there talking candidly and openly and willing to put up with the hate that comes with being a survivor in public.
That is so
So those are good things. I hear those occasionally. I definitely hear them usually after an in-person presentation. People will come up and talk with me, thank me for being there, like they do with any speaker. And then some people will tell you their story, and you might be the first person they've ever told.
Yeah, that's always a good feeling to know that, you let them know that they're not alone. This does happen, and they're not crazy, and they're not making it up.
Exactly.
What is an advice that you would give? I want to say survivors, but I also want to direct that to male survivors.
That you have a right to be heard. It's not like you have to take if you're talking about your own story in your own space, your own time, or in events that are meant to be public for anyone to speak. That's not taking anything away from female survivors. It's one thing if you derail the discussion specifically about female survivors, but you talking on your own, or you starting your own discussions, or you being part of a larger discussion is not taking anything away from anyone else. And anyone who tells you that is not an ally and not someone you can trust. You have the right to be heard, to get help, to be taken seriously. You have the right to heal.
How do you think we can, I want to say, educate each other when it comes to male survivors? Besides the first thing, not blaming them, a form to help them.
One thing is to not focus on, well, how come you didn't fight back? That's always the go-to. Anybody who's got any competency on this issue understands fight, flight, or freeze. And that's at play for anybody. Also, it takes men a lot longer to come forward in some cases, especially depending on how much older they are, because they haven't felt comfortable not being okay with what happened. Even though on a subconscious level they weren't okay, they were putting up a good front. They had on the mask, and that mask you put on hides everything under it until it doesn't anymore. And then it's really, really scary because you don't know what to do. You don't know what you're allowed to think. You don't even know if you're allowed to call yourself a survivor. Giving people permission. If you give a male survivor permission, feel whatever they need to feel, that's how they kick their healing. It starts with permission.
And that is something, I think we don't allow men to feel. We just expect them to be strong and not to cry. So that is very, very powerful, because we always allow women we let them know that it's okay for them to cry. But you're right, we never really allow the guys cry, to be like, it's okay for you to feel this way.
We held them to a different standard. They're not supposed to have feelings.
I mean, I remember early on when I talked about going to therapy and starting to heal, and I got mocked by a journalist for it. This person was a part-timer. They're not left with any paper or anything. They just did freelance stuff. But I kind of went at him in the comments. This is before I stopped engaging them on their own turf. And it was like, you're mocking me for getting therapy and telling me I'm not a real man? And I'm like, you know how hard I had to fight to decide to actually go get help and admit that I was hurt? And you're telling me it's literally the opposite? And it's not just men policing other men. It's, in some cases, women policing men because, oh, he's not strong at all. He's weak. I wouldn't want to be with a man who had been raped and thought it was a problem. Or I wouldn't have any respect for a man who was raped by a woman. Why couldn't you just kick her ass and then get out of the situation? It's really difficult when people have these repressive mindsets about therapy and healing and emotions and healthy expressions of how you feel.
It is, because, there is already so much when it comes to being a minority, and men are a minority when it comes to reporting it. They are part of the minority because it's made to seem like it doesn't happen to them.
Yeah, definitely. And some advocates have a vested interest in keeping us quiet because they know that once this starts, they're not going to be able to handle the avalanche of men who start coming forward, because they know the numbers are higher, much higher than the stats say, because the stats are in some cases based only on reporting, or they're based on definitions that call the same act rape if it happens to a woman and something lesser if it happens to a man, so it's not included even in the same data sets. So they know if men start coming forward, the resources that are out there right now will not be adequate.
Yes, and I think what we need to understand that when we fight for equality, we fight for equality in every aspect. That means this too. That means allowing men to forward and believing them. That means investigating the rape, investigating what happened, allowing them to heal, like you said, helping them heal, actually putting resources out there for them to heal.
Exactly, and it's not a competition. It's and it's people always talk about empathy, and I'm like, empathy is not a game. It's not a finite resource. You can have empathy for female survivors and also have empathy for male survivors. If your work is focused solely on one gender or another, that's okay, as long as you're not telling the other gender identity that their problems aren't real and they should not get any help. You personally saying, I'm not going to be involved in that because it's not right for me, or I don't have bandwidth, is different than saying your issues aren't important at all.
Yes, because like I've said before, I can't speak on male survivors because I don't have knowledge on it. I don't know anyone either to actually, help. But that doesn't mean that they don't exist. That doesn't mean that they're wrong and they're lying. Like, they do exist. I'm uneducated when it comes to that.
Like one thing, I had a woman get on my case once when I was talking about rape. She said, it's not rape, it's violence against women. I said, I understand that concept. I was raped by a woman like you. I'm not going to say I was violenced against women. I was raped. I'm owning that word, attaching it to my experience, and you don't get to tell me that's not what it is just because you don't want to share any resources or discussion of this topic with anyone else. And that happens, unfortunately, way too often, especially with older white feminists.
Yeah, I've had a couple of them that were victims themselves, say certain things, and I'm like, that's not how that works. That's not why that works. That's not even how it happened.
Exactly. And I'm like, focus on however you want, direct your energy however you want, but stop telling everybody else that they can't direct it in a different way.
Do you want to let our listeners know where to? I think it's really important for them to be able to find you, especially, I believe that if there are other men wanting to come forward, I do believe that they will feel more comfortable with a man.
Sure. My website is jameslandrith.com, and it's JamesLandrith, T as in Tom, H as in hotel.com. There are also some Facebook groups that I help moderate. One is for male survivors who had served in the military, and you can look for men recovering from military sexual trauma on Facebook, and you'll find our page, and you can always shoot an email to the mods there if you're interested in joining the group. You won't find the group is secret, so that we can keep out people who are not interested in the group for the right reasons. So I do a little screening before I let another veteran into the group to make sure that they are who they say they are. We're not like doing background checks or anything, but yeah.
For the correct.
Exactly. So you can always reach me through my website. I don't do crisis counseling on the side outside of my job, but I can direct people to resources if they need something. And there's always, of course, all the different national hotlines that exist out there if someone needs that kind of work. So I want to stress that that's not something I can do. I don't have the bandwidth for individual counseling like that. But I'm always happy to answer questions or send people to a resource if it's something that I trust.
Yeah, I will link information in the description, and I just think that it's so important, especially because you are experienced, you've been doing this, you are a male survivor, you are spoken out, so it gives you that, he knows what it feels like, he knows what it is, and especially with men, because they don't come forward, they should be able to come forward and find a space, and if you could direct them in the correct way, I think it would be so helpful.
Oh yeah, definitely. And one resource I would give right off the bat is 1 in 6. It's the number 1, IN, the number 6.org. They are a resource available for men who are now adults who had been sexually abused as children. They have a lot of resources online, information to statistics, and they also, through a partnership with RAIN, offer a hotline. And the hotline's also available to supporters of these men who may be a wife or a husband or a mother or a father who are looking for resources. So 1in6.org and their national hotline is also a resource. A lot of men experience their abuse before the age of 18, which is where that stat 1 in 6 comes in. 1 in 6 men and boys will experience some form of unwanted sexual contact before the age of 18. And then magically when they turn 18, all the national data erases that for some reason. But anyway, that's a different topic.
Yeah, because they're not under the system anymore. They're not minors, so they can't.
So then you get numbers like 1 in 33 and 1 in 71. And I'm like, but what happened to all of this stuff that happened when they were 18? Anyway.
That's another topic.
So do you want to let them know where to find us, Charlotte?
Yes, you can find us on IG at _girls.likeus, or you can email us at girlslikeus619@gmail.com, or you just check us out on Facebook at Girls Like Us 619. Go ahead and drop us a DM if you want to tell us your story. You can always remain anonymous. Just share your thoughts. IG _girls.like.us. Email us girlslikeus619@gmail.com. And once again on Facebook at Girls Like Us 619.
Also, don't forget that the National Sexual Assault Hotline, the number is 800-656-HOPE. That number is 800-656-4673. And if you're in Arizona, the Arizona Coalition to End Sexual and Domestic Violence, that number is 609-279-2900. Thanks, guys. Don't forget to rate us, please. Share us, listen to us, tell a friend, tell a friend.
Follow us.
Follow us. Yes, everything, just spread the information. Just spread it.
Yes.
And thanks for listening to Girls Like Us.